Part 46. Lakeside Jake's POV panting and weak, I climbed up the last of the cliffside. Finally, having reached the top after 30 minutes of repeatedly causing rock slides with magic, then climbing up the debris, I pulled myself up to the top and laid on my back. That was terrible, I complained to myself, only to hear Suma's voice in my head again. "Okay, Jake, I think I know the best way for you to conquer the next obstacle," she said proudly. I didn't bother answering her at first. I was too tired. "Jake, can you hear me?" she asked, confused. "Yes, Suma, I can hear you. I just need a minute." "Okay, but you may not want to take too long. While I was flying, I saw a giant black serpent coming your way." If I hadn't been so tired, I probably would have laughed. "Very funny, Suma," I said dryly. I thought it was a good joke, but my body didn't care at the moment. "I am not being funny, Jake. There really is a black serpent familiar heading your way." That caught my attention. "Wait, what?" "I think it belongs to that noble Loric." "Huh, that will be interesting to see," I said. During this entire conversation, I hadn't yet been able to bring myself to stand, or even sit up. "Jake, if the familiar behind you reaches the end first, then you will have to do the entire course again tomorrow," she shouted. That got my attention and woke me up. I bolted to my feet and started heading for the next obstacle as fast as I could manage. While running, I activated one of the runes on my armor. It was a body magic rune that was supposed to increase to users' stamina. I hadn't had a chance to use them yet, so I gave them a shot. I summoned a pre-prepared Daljar of mana and activated the rune. Obviously, I couldn't do it without the Daljar, or the rune would have done who knows what. As soon as it activated, I felt like I could run all day if I needed to. I was at the next obstacle in minutes. "Okay, Jake, I think the best way to beat this one is to go around it," she said. "I don't know," I said, staring out across the lake. "It's pretty wide. So do I just have to get to the other side of the lake?" The shore of the lake was almost 3 kilometers in each direction, but only 100 meters across. I stuck a hand in the water. It was fairly warm, actually. "Yes, essentially. At the other end of the lake is a small island. On the island is the prize of the course. Once you have retrieved the prize, you return back to the start via whatever path you choose," Suma explained. "So this test would be easy for familiars that could swim or fly but not walk." "Exactly," Suma confirmed. I sent away Jericho and stripped off my underclothes. Thankfully, the effects of the rune didn't dissipate, or what I was about to do would have been suicide. "Jake, why are you removing your garments?" "Because," I said, wading into the lake, "I'm going to swim across." There was a moment of silence from Suma. "You can swim? How? You weigh more than 50 neem put together." "Yeah, but I'm mostly made of water, and I used to swim in lakes all the time as a child, so I'm a pretty strong swimmer," I explained as I began my breaststroke. Suma's POV Jake called it swimming, but at first I thought I needed to summon him to safety to prevent him from drowning. He flailed about like he needed help, but no matter what, he did not stop moving forward. I was not worried about any creatures in the water, since the lake was not natural, but was constructed for the course. "Jake, if you use magic, you might be able to go faster," I suggested. "Yeah, but I would have to stop swimming to cast the spell. I can't do both at the same time," he said. "What if you just used a body enhancement spell? That way you could move faster after you resumed swimming." "I don't know how," he said. "Could you explain it?" "I could try." I took a moment to remember the steps of the spell. I had used it a few times before, like when I was running away from those 3 nobles that day. First, you need to wrap mana around your body. Then you imagine that mana entering you and radiating throughout your every muscle and bone. After that, you need to imagine the mana being absorbed by your body and empowering you. Jake began to slow down his swimming, then came to a stop. "Okay, I'll try," he said. I could see him from my perch and watched as he was surrounded by a dark blue cloud of his mana. Then it rushed into him, disappearing from view. "Oh, wow!" he exclaimed. He started swimming again, much faster than before, twice as fast, maybe even 3 times. I could not help but be slightly jealous. It took me a month to learn that spell properly, and he did it in a mere moment. "This is amazing!" he yelled out excitedly. "You are going much faster now than before, Jake," I said. I was about to congratulate him for learning the spell so quickly, but a slithering black mass on the shoreline caught my eye. "Jake! That black serpent is at the shoreline!" "Oh, heck no!" Jake yelled, frantic. "Do not worry. That type of familiar cannot swim, so it will have to go around the lake. But you still need to hurry. It is a rather swift creature." I explained and watched it quickly make its way around the shore. "How long do I have?" Jake asked. I turned back to him. He seemed to be swimming faster than before. "Not long. Do not slow down," I told him seriously. Jake was halfway to the island and was closing in rapidly, but the serpent, despite having only just arrived, was already a quarter or a fifth of the way around the lake. Jake's POV, I swam as fast as I could. It felt at some points like I was only skimming along the water's surface, but it wasn't fast enough. "Jake, the familiar is already halfway there!" Suma yelled. I was grateful to our private connection at this moment. The ability to ask her questions and get updates without having to actually speak was useful when I was focused on swimming. I felt my hands hit sand and knew I was on the island. "Suma, I'm on the island!" I announced, and cast a spell that forced all of the water away from me so I could run along the sand. I dropped to the ground and bolted for the prize. It was some kind of golden shaft, and there were several of them in a circle. Well, almost a circle. Some of the prizes had already been claimed by the familiars that went before me. I picked one up and called out to Suma. "Suma, I have the prize!" "Great, head towards the exits as fast as you can." "I will, but you need to do the same," I said. "What? Why?" "Just go. I will explain as you fly," I said, and started running towards the exit, thanking my lucky stars that the physical enhancement spell Suma taught me was still active, or else I would have dropped from exhaustion by now. Just as I was about to turn to leave the beach and head for the exit, the black serpent slithered up behind me. Loric Isbala's POV loyalty was making excellent time in the trial, perhaps even fast enough to beat the previous record, but that was not my goal. I reached out to him through the Rite of Dominance spell and tried to gauge how tired he was. He seemed to be fine, but I would not be able to push him much further without putting him in danger. I looked through his eyes again to see where he was and what his situation was like, and saw something quite interesting. The Viking familiar swimming across the water. Strange, I would not have guessed he would have been able to swim, I said to myself. I realized that if loyalty had caught up with him, then that would mean he would have to go much faster or risk failing the trail. He would most likely push himself harder than normal, to his very limits even. "What are your limits, Viking?" I wondered aloud. Within moments of this, the Viking cast a spell to disperse the water in front of him and ran to the prizes. Loyalty was close, so I ordered him to slow down a bit and save his strength, but even if he did that, he would still arrive at the prizes shortly. Loyalty's hearing is not great, but his sight is amazing, and with it I saw that the Viking was talking to someone, probably his master. Soon, Loyalty arrived at the prizes and came face to face with the one called Sentinel. "Oh, crap," the Viking said. "You're pretty big, huh?" I could not communicate with the Viking, not through Loyalty at least, so I had no way to answer back. Not that I would know what to say to such a statement anyway. Was he trying to talk to me? No, he was talking to my familiar. Sentinel began to back up and slowly make his way around Loyalty, never once taking his eyes off of him. It seemed he was afraid of Loyalty. "Suma, as soon as you arrive at the exit, summon me." He was talking to his master, planning to get to the exit quickly so as not to fail the trail. "Then don't land. Just get close to the ground before summoning me." "How far will you push yourself, if properly motivated?" I wondered, and came up with a plan of my own. Suma's POV. "Suma, I have the prize," Jake called out to me. "Great, head towards the exits as fast as you can," I told him, still watching the serpent familiar. It was almost at the prizes as well and would be arriving shortly, despite the fact that it had slowed down. "I will, but you need to do the same," Jake said. "What? Why?" "Just go. I will explain as you fly." I trusted Jake and started flying towards the exit area Jake needed to be at, but just as I did, I looked back to him. The black serpent arrived at the area with the prizes, the area where Jake currently was. Nothing had happened yet, but I was still nervous. I knew in my head it would not hurt him. It was against the rules for familiars to fight while stationed at training camp. But that was of little reassurance to me at the moment. I knew Loric disliked, even hated Jake, so I feared what might happen. "Suma, as soon as you arrive at the exit, summon me," Jake said, sounding quite uneasy. "Halfway there, Jake, but I cannot land, remember? If I do, then we fail the trail," I told him. Then don't land. Just get close to the ground before summoning me, he said. I do not know if I can, but I will try, I said, uncertain. I flew as fast as I could, even using enhancing magic to increase my speed. The moment the gate entered my sight, I started diving towards it and getting as close to the ground as I could without losing speed. But that was made a bit difficult. The trees were too dense to fly quickly through, and I could not touch anything without being disqualified. Jake, there are too many trees to fly close to the ground, but if I get any higher, you might get hurt when you fall. I think I have an idea for that. Just summon me near the gate if you can, he shouted, and the sooner the better. I think that snake familiar is chasing me. I turned and examined the area where Jake was running from, and saw that he was right. The familiar was chasing after him, but quite slowly. Jake seemed to be running as fast as he could, but it was still nowhere near as fast as the serpent could go. I do see him behind you, Jake, but it is moving slowly for some reason, I said. I find that hard to believe, considering I haven't been able to lose it yet, Jake countered. He was starting to sound tired. His enhancement must have been fading. Jake, that creature is much faster than you, if it has not passed you yet. Jake, I think it might be chasing you, I yelled. I did not know what to think. What was Loric's familiar doing? Did he lose control over it? No. If he had, the beast would already be on a rampage, not slowly stalking Jake. Loric is still in control, which means he ordered his familiar to do this. I figured that much out already. It hasn't attacked yet, but that could change. Are you at the gate yet? Jake shouted. Yes, I said as I arrived. Summoning you now. I looked below me and saw a tree full of branches. I hope you have your armor on, Jake, I said to myself, then began the summoning spell. I summon you, Sentinel. Jake appeared before me slowly, hanging weightless in the air. That is, until the summon was complete, then he fell, hard. He seemed to hit every single branch during his fall through the tree and hit the ground with a meaty thud and a groan. Are you okay? Without a word, Jake summoned a small doll jar of mana and placed the end of it to the runes on his armor. His armor began to glow a soft green and was wrapped in magic circles. The effects of his healing runes had started. That hurt so much, he complained and slowly stood up. Are you sure you are okay? I asked, looking him over while still maintaining flight. I think so. Which way is the gate? He asked. Follow me, I told him, and headed towards the gate. We bought you some time, but the serpent is fast. Jake was worn out from the healing runes, but he still had some of his enhancement left, so he was moving about around his normal speed. That being said, it was still incredibly slow. Suma, Jake said, breathless. Could you wrap me in mana and carry me? I think I'm about to collapse. I am sorry, Jake, but the rules strictly forbid that, and I do not think I could anyway. You are quite heavy. He sighed and kept going. Eventually, we made it to the gate, and Jake collapsed as soon as he crossed it. Finally, he said, relieved and lying motionless on the ground. Good job, recruits, said a voice from behind us. Jake did not even bother lifting his head. I turned and saw it was the instructor for the training. If your familiar needs medical attention, tend to him and unsummon him. Then report for your evaluation with the rest of the recruits who participated today. They are waiting at Field 1 for everyone to join them before they get started. I thanked the instructor and went to Jake's side. Are you okay? Jake did not answer. Jake? I asked again. Still, he did not answer. I was worried for a moment before I realized he was asleep. I silently cast another spell of healing on him just to be safe, then sent him home and flew to the meeting area that the instructor mentioned. Once I arrived, I took a moment to look around at the other Neem who participated today. Among them was the nameless Neem who had the lightning familiar, a named Neem called Toman, and Vindicta as well. Suma, I'm glad you passed, she announced upon seeing me. How did Jake do? I flew over beside her and grew a perch to rest on. I think he did okay. He was exceptional at many of the obstacles and had innovative solutions for the ones he was struggling with. However, he is still quite a bit slower than most familiars. I explained. Behind me, the sounds of flapping and shifting vines let me know another participant had arrived. It was Loric Isbala. Part 47. Confronting Problems. Loric Isbala's POV. Oh, crap, the Viking said. You're pretty big, huh? I could not communicate with the Viking, not through loyalty at least, so I had no way to answer back. Not that I would know what to say to such a statement anyway. Was he trying to talk to me? No, he was talking to my familiar. Sentinel began to back up and slowly make his way around Loyalty, never once taking his eyes off him. It seemed he was afraid of Loyalty. "Suma, as soon as you arrive at the exit, summon me." He was talking to his master, planning to get to the exit quickly so as not to fail the trail. "Then don't land. Just get close to the ground before summoning me." How far will you push yourself? If properly motivated, I wondered, and came up with a plan of my own. The familiar turned and started quickly moving away from Loyalty. I ordered him to follow it from a distance. "I want to see how far you will go." Sentinel. It ran for quite a while, but it was not very fast. Not compared to Loyalty, at least. He had an easy time following as the familiar tried and failed to lose him on several occasions, all the while talking to its master, at least until he was summoned away. "Fine, Loyalty, proceed to the gate, forget about the Viking." I myself took to the skies and went to the gate as well. I saw Lady Suma heading away from the gate just as I landed on a perch near one of the instructors. A moment later, Loyalty arrived and officially completed the course. "Well, Loric," the instructor said, "you finished sooner than expected. Well done. If your familiar needs medical attention, tend to him and send him away. Then report for your evaluation at Field 1 with the rest of the recruits who participated today. They are waiting for everyone to join them before they get started." "Yes, sir." I cast a single healing spell on Loyalty just in case he had any damage I did not know about, then sent him away. After that, I flew straight to Field 1. I created a perch and landed amongst a group of other recruits awaiting their evaluation. I found myself wondering how our familiars' performances would be scored. Shortly after my arrival, Lady Suma and Lady Vindicta approached me and grew perches of their own. "Loric, why did your familiar follow Jake? Were you trying to hurt him?" Lady Suma asked. "Having familiars hurt each other is against the rules, you know that." "I am aware of the rules, Madam Suma. Loyalty did not injure your familiar in any way." "But he did follow him?" Lady Vindicta asked. "Yes, he did," said Lady Suma. "I admit I had Loyalty follow your familiar closely after finding him lakeside." "Why?" Lady Suma wondered. I thought about how to answer. I knew why I did it, but how do I explain my reasoning? I wanted to find an answer to a question. "There is no reason to speak in riddles," Lady Vindicta said. "Just tell us why." "Your familiar is a Viking, at least according to the rumors. I wanted to find out what he would do and how far he would push himself." My statement caused everyone who had been pretending to ignore our conversation to turn in shock towards us. "That is a lie," Lady Suma denied. "Jake is no Viking." "It's true. Jake explained that," Vindicta tried to say, but Suma covered her beak with a wing to silence her. "The point is, Jake is not a Viking," she said. I imagine the conversation would have continued, but the final recruit and all of the instructors of the course arrived together. The recruit grew a perch near one of her friends, and the instructors, 6 in total, grew theirs together in a place where everyone would be able to see. "All right, recruits, quiet down. We are going to begin your evaluations." Vindicta and Suma left and went to the perches they were on before I arrived. The instructors announced how each familiar and master would be scored. They would point out areas where they were impressed and where we fell short. The goal was not to pass or fail us. Everyone here had already passed by completing the course before the recruit who came after them. These were the instructors of the ones who passed. Only 6 of the original 15 recruits to partake in the course made it. Once they announced how everything would work, they called out to the recruits whom they were evaluating. Mine was Instructor 13. His feathers were a bit lighter than mine, but he was also a fair amount larger. "Okay, Loric, I have a few notes about your familiar Loyalty," my instructor said after we had flown away from the group to talk. "Don't worry, most of it's good. He performed well, as did you, but there were a few instances where I feel like you could improve. I look forward to any advice you may have, sir." Firstly, Loyalty seems to have handled each obstacle well, save for the lake and crossing Dalabi River. I take it your familiar can't swim? That is correct. That's something you will need to be aware of moving forwards and in battle. A familiar's limitations can be deadly, so you need to plan for them. I think you should try coming up with a way he can cross water. I will try, sir. Good. Now I noticed he can't move at a consistent pace. Why is that? I believe loyalty is an ambush predator, sir. He can move quickly in bursts, but not prolonged events. He also has the ability to blend into his surroundings. Those are useful traits, but not being able to keep up with faster allies could be a hindrance. There might also be times where you would need him to travel long distances without stopping, so be aware of that. I do not know how I would fix that, sir, I said, confused. You can't, but you may be able to think around it. The limitations of our familiars force us to think strategically and creatively. I understand. That's all I have in regards to improving your familiar, but I also wanted to point out instances I noticed and had questions about. Yes, sir. We talked a while longer. He wanted to know about why I had him do certain things rather than more traditional routes, and he also wanted to know why I had loyalty follow the Viking. I was simply curious about him, sir. I was careful to make sure loyalty knew not to hurt him or interfere with his attempt at taking the course. I see. Well, it's true you didn't interfere with the Vic. Suma's familiar, and I suppose I can't blame you for being curious. However, I would like to know why you didn't pass him and finish sooner. I dislike the idea of having a Viking as a familiar. No, I loathe it, but the matter at hand is that we are at war. I can tolerate it for now so long as it benefits the kingdom. Suma's POV. The point is, Jake is not a Viking, I declared. I had more I wanted to say, but the final recruit and all of the instructors arrived. The recruit grew a perch near a group of her friends, and the 6 instructors grew theirs together on a small raise in the terrain. All right, recruits, quiet down. We are going to begin your evaluations. I swallowed my frustration, and Vindicta and I went back to the perches we were using before Loric arrived. The instructors announced how each familiar and summoner would be scored. They would point out areas where they were impressed or we fell short. They were not going to pass or fail us. Everyone present had already passed by completing the course before the recruit who came after them. These were only the instructors of the ones who had passed, which meant only 6 of the original 15 recruits to partake in the course actually completed it. They announced how everything would work, then called out to the recruits they were evaluating. Suma, please come with me, my instructor said, before flying a little way away and growing 2 perches for us. Good luck, Vindicta said. I thanked her and met with my instructor. My instructor was the same one who I met earlier, the one I talked to when Jake entered the underground portion of the course. I did not realize you were my instructor, ma'am, I said. That was the point. We needed everyone to give their best, whether or not their own instructor was nearby, so we kept it secret. I suppose that makes sense. Before we begin, did you have a chance to talk with anyone about the runes Jake found yet? Jake? Ah, right. Your familiar has 2 names. No, I haven't had the time yet, but I will. Anyway, about Sentinel's performance. He is rather slow, isn't he? If Loric hadn't slowed down towards the end, you wouldn't be in this room right now. Hearing her say that, she was right. Jake is slower than most familiars. However, you guided him well and used his strength to his advantage. Thank you, ma'am. It's no secret that you have an unusual familiar. Not just that he can talk and use magic of his own, but also in the way he approaches problems, especially in the later half of the course. I could not help but feel a swell of pride as she complimented Jake. Even though I did not actually do anything, I still liked that he was getting the credit he deserved. However, there are still areas where he needs to improve. He can use magic, but not a remarkably diverse amount. His approaches may be unique, but they are often simple. Yes, ma'am, but I am not sure that we can blame Jake for that. He is a chaos mage. Most of the magic he is able to use has been made illegal. The enemy doesn't care about a familiar or summoner's situation. They only care about if it plays to their advantage. Sentinel needs to improve his skill with magic, as well as find a way to increase his speed further. I saw him use enhancement magic to cross the lake fast, but that isn't enough. Again, I could not disagree. That all being said, I was extremely impressed with his and your performance. You were? But I assumed, based on what you said, yes, he has areas he needs to improve, but his mana reserves and stamina are astounding, and his ability to rapidly learn new magic techniques is unlike any I have ever seen. Not to mention the way he handled some of the obstacles was impressive. Thank you, ma'am. If he were my familiar, I would use his strength and stamina to compensate for his lack of speed. That's where he shines, anyway. But I thought you said he needed to get faster. He does, and as soon as possible, but there is no getting around the fact that he is still going to be slower than most other familiars. So you should look for ways to use what advantages he does have. I will, ma'am. Thank you. Now I want to talk to you about his magic. I was there during the battle training. I saw what he is capable of, so why is he not training to use more spells like that? Well, most familiars do not know magic, and I am a healing mage, so have him report tomorrow to the training in the battle mages section of camp. It will be going on at the same time the healing mages have their training. I want him to start participating in their training to improve his abilities. Yes, ma'am. Part 48. An attack mage is born. Jake's POV. Suma, could you wrap me in mana and carry me? I think I'm about to collapse, I asked Suma. My legs burned, my lungs too. Every square inch of my body ached despite having already been healed. I am sorry, Jake, but the rules strictly forbid that, and I do not think I could anyway. You are quite heavy. I sighed and trudged onward. Eventually, we made it to the gate, and I collapsed as soon as I crossed it. Finally, I said, relieved and lying motionless on the ground. All I wanted to do was sleep. To me, in that moment, nothing else mattered. Good job, recruits, said a voice from behind us. I ignored it, and I barely heard anything else it said. I think I passed out, if I'm being honest. I woke up later on the floor of my kitchen, freezing cold and with a throbbing headache from hunger. I groaned and moaned as I forced myself up and grabbed a sleeve of crisps, crackers, and bottled vitamin water from my pantry. While this was the first time I had used those healing runes, it wasn't the first time I had experienced this post-healing hangover. I looked at my kitchen timer and did some quick mental math. 12 hours had passed since Suma summoned me. I figured I spent about 4 hours doing the course, so I had probably gotten about 8 hours of sleep after she sent me home. Huh, that's a lot shorter than normal, I said to myself after downing the entire bottle of water in less than 15 seconds. That's like half the normal time or something. Then I found myself wondering something. Suma? I asked. Oh, hello, Jake. How are you feeling? I'm okay, so did we pass? Yes, we did, but only barely. She sounded disappointed, frustrated. I see. Well, what happened to that snake familiar? Nothing, since it did not technically do anything but follow you. It did not break any rules. I confronted Loric, but I had no proof he had any ill intentions, so nothing can be done yet, she explained. Jake, there is one more thing. Bad news? I asked. That depends on you. What do you mean? The instructor has ordered that you start attending the attack mage's training sessions to improve your magic. It starts in 2 hours. Oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. But did she give a reason? I asked, confused. I mean, you're a healing mage and I'm your familiar, so I just assumed. I said the same thing, but she wants you to lean into your strengths and cover your weaknesses. She believes this is the best way to do that. Well, I'm not opposed to the idea or anything. I guess it could be interesting. What kinds of training do they do? Suma didn't know the answer, but it didn't matter because I found out the hard way 2 hours later on their training ground. Sentinel! Keep your head down and move! The instructor yelled as the group I was assigned to raced across a simulated battlefield. Explosions went off around us as fire magic spells crash-landed nearby. With me were 7 Neem, 3 of which had names, all riding their own familiars. Even you can't take a hit from one of those spells. Now go, go, go! Move faster, familiar! One of the named Neem, who was stuck in the position behind me, chirped. There were 8, including me. 15 if you include their own familiars, and I was in the 4th position from the front. The point of this training was to learn how to not be bothered by the sound of explosions going off around us by moving along the field out in the open. Our path was clearly marked, and we knew we weren't going to be hit, but we still needed to walk as if we were in the low trenches that the Neem need to fly through while transporting supplies on real battlefields. We performed that training for 2 more hours, and my ears were ringing the whole time. After we finished, we went to the healers section to take care of any accidental injuries and fix our hearing. I thought we were done, until the instructor ordered us all to get ready for attack drills at Field 1. Normally they would all fly there as a group, But I can't fly, and the instructor made us walk there. Well, I walked. They rode on their familiars. Once we finally arrived for the drill, the instructor explained how it would work. There are 3 rules. Always aim your spells at the field, never at your squad. You will shoot at the target until you hit it 3 consecutive times. Finally, if you run out of mana, you do high dives while the rest of your squadron eats lunch. We went 2 at a time. First was a neem called Aldo and another nameless neem. Aldo and the other left their perches and landed on 2 a few meters away from the group. The first to finish was the nameless neem, but Aldo wasn't too far behind him. As soon as one finished the task, another took his place regardless of whether the other one had finished. I figured this was a way to let people study each other's techniques, or maybe as a safety precaution, but I didn't really know. Each neem's attack spells were different. The first used a flame attack similar to the attack Suma used against the wyvern to save me. The second used icicles to impale, and the third had a lightning attack. The fourth attacked by lifting rocks and dirt, then crushing the target. The 5th and 6th were named neem called Tomu and Lekep, who used water and wind respectively. Then finally it was number 7 and me. As I stepped up next to the perch the others were using, the instructor said, "I was told you have tactical scale magic sentinel. Is that true?" "Yes, sir. But I'm still a bit unfamiliar with the way spells are ranked. I was told that one of my spells was tactical grade." "Show us," he ordered. "I thought I wasn't allowed to use magic that powerful in training." "That's for healers. This is attack magic. If you have the ability, then do it. If not, then do your next best attack spell." "Yes, sir," I said and reached into my backpack to pull out a steel ball bearing. Just like last time, I started by envisioning the target becoming magnetized and drawing the ball bearings closer as they approached. Then I created a magical rail system along the path I wanted the ball to follow. The ball would be pulled along by electromagnetism through the air and suspended with my mana. While the spell was pulling the balls along with magnetism, it would also be generating a reversed polarity behind the ball, driving it forwards. "Railgun!" I activated the spell, and a thunderous crack roared through the air, reducing the target to debris. The whole process felt like it went by faster than the last time, probably because I had done it before. "That's—" the instructor yelled, but then stopped and began speaking normally again. "Ah, that's an impressive spell, Sentinel, but it's too slow for normal combat. Do you have anything faster?" Well, sir, normally I would use my weapons, but at this distance, I don't know," I tried to say, but was cut off. "You can't rely solely on a single ranged attack spell, especially one that needs external components like those metal balls. I want you to try another attack, one that only uses your own magic." Yes, sir," I said, and decided to do a fire spell, one similar to what Suma uses. I had done more research on fire after what happened in that cave as a way to improve my spell, so I had been looking for an excuse to use one anyway. In just a moment, I had formed a large fireball and launched it at the second target. This one wasn't destroyed like the first, but it did burn even after the spell faded. Your spells are incredibly strong, but your manifestation of them is far too slow. You need to increase the speed of your casting, or you will die as soon as you step into the war." "Yes, sir, I understand," I said. He was right, compared to Suma, Vindicta, or even Von Pak. My casting was at a snail's pace, even if I was stronger than them. "How would I do that, sir? Get faster, I mean." "The only real way is training, hard and often. But you could also try to find ways of quickening your image when building a spell. We call it association training. You have to force a connection between what you want and how it happens. Tell me, what do you do to create fire?" he asked. "I guess I start by imagining a flame, then picturing what causes the flame to burn and why," I said. "So you create more powerful spells as a result of this image, but you are already strong. You could forego the precision of the image and still manage to form a formidable spell." "Then I shouldn't be worried about spell strength?" I asked. "I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you shouldn't worry about spell precision. You're plenty strong as you are, and having a more precise spell will increase that power, but for you that may not be an issue you should worry about." "Okay, I think I understand," I said. "Good. Then take your last attempt and we will restart from the beginning." I turned back to the targets and did another fire attack. This time, however, I focused on speed instead of perfection or power. Fireball! I shouted. In less than a second, I conjured and launched an attack. It hit the target dead center. But there was something different this time. Instead of doing what I would normally do and pull in heat and energy from the environment to create the flames, I just used my pure mana, which had an unusual result. For starters, it wasn't as large, maybe only 2/3 my normal sized, but it was also hotter and a different color. Purple flames? One of the recruits behind me said, stunned. Suma's POV. So Jake is training with the attack mages then? Vindicta asked. We were practicing our healing spells on damaged fruits. Yes, he left to join them a while ago for evasion and shock training, I told her as I cast a spell on my target. A cut, which had been gaping and letting the juice leak out, began to seal. How do you think he will do? Fine, I believe, but I do not know. I suppose it depends on how hard the instructor makes them train. Vindicta nodded her head in agreement, and the neem in charge of our final healing qualifications exam landed on the perch next to us. I see you're faring well as always, Lady Suma, she said. Indeed, ma'am, I replied. Lady Vindicta, you're doing quite well also. Thank you, ma'am. Can I ask how Von Pak is doing? Vindicta asked. The instructor seemed to find her question funny. I'm afraid I am not allowed to give specifics about other candidates, but I can tell you he is doing fine. Vindicta seemed pleased. Her head feathers raised slightly, and her bee smears glowed just a bit brighter. Anyway, be prepared. A group of combat cadets is coming from their training sessions, and they need to be healed, I'm sure. We are expecting them soon. Is it the squadron my familiar was assigned to? I asked. I'm sorry. I don't know which one you're speaking of, but it is Squad 3, she answered. Oh, he was assigned to Squad 5. I said, disappointed that I was not going to be able to see him. If you're worried, why not just talk to him through the private channel you told me about? Vindicta said after the instructor flew away. I considered it, but I do not want to distract him from his training. I explained. With that, Vindicta and I refocused on our final qualification exams. It was hard to believe that we were so close to the end of our tenure at this camp and were almost fully fledged healing mages for the army. Suma, I have a question, Vindicta said softly. You are as good a healer as I am, Vindicta. If you do not know something, it is unlikely I know it either. No, not that. Have you and Jake made your decisions about the Drakes yet? Yes. Will you? We will, I said. Please be safe. She sounded as if she were about to start singing, but did not. I will try. Thank you. After our conversation, however brief it was, we did not talk for the rest of the training. Neither one of us could without fear of singing. Hours passed, and eventually Jake made contact and said that he was done with his attack training for the day. I summoned him to me, and we spent some time resting before we needed to go to familiar training together. While we waited, we talked. How was training? I asked. I think it went pretty good. I learned a lot, I think, but that shock training sure was loud, he said, smiling. What did you learn? I wondered. He was already extraordinarily strong, so I honestly did not believe there would be much for him to gain from the training. I learned how to cast my spells faster and a new way to picture my spells. That will be good to know, I said. Oh, can I ask you a weird question? Is it about Vindicta and Von Pak? I said jokingly. No, everyone already knows about them. I wanted to ask if having purple flames was unusual. Why? I asked cautiously. Well, when my flames turned purplish-blue during training, everyone seemed kind of freaked out by it. He explained. I held my feelings in for a moment and asked another question. Jake, when you say purple, was it a bright purple or a dark purple? It was more of a mix of dark blue and purple, like a northwest purple, not an eminence purple. I do not know what that means. More of a dark blue with purple mixed in? Okay, and why did you make your flames that color? I asked, trying not to panic for his sake. Suma, you are starting to kind of freak me out now. What's up? It has nothing to do with you, but I can certainly understand why your squamates would have become uncomfortable. Which is why. Purple flames were common for the Vikings. Oh, ooh! If you love engaging stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated with all the latest episodes from FY Stories.